Hello everyone. We just got back from vacation and we had to remove a lot of the orchids from the enclosed balcony to spare them the heat while we were away. When we got back and I was shuffling them around and placing them back in the shelves, I remembered again one of the first videos we ever made. That video where we, along with a lot of other orchid growers online, went through our entire collections and counted how many orchids we actually have. It has been 5 years since we did that video, so I thought it would be fun to do it again, going shelf by shelf, genre by genre. We do know how many orchids we have, because we have them all logged in a database, but I think this is still going to be a fun video and a fun way to do an impromptu collection update. So let's start with the first balcony shelf, where we keep our Oncidiums in the top two shelves. And if the sound isn't the best right now, I am literally on top of a ladder with a camera and a tripod, so this audio might not turn out the best. We've organized our Oncidiums by keeping the smaller ones and those species that are related to Oncidiums on this shelf. And then on the top one, we keep the bigger, more unruly ones that literally wouldn't fit or look nice anywhere else. As you can see, we have the Sunzi for them that so far has been working great. And this is also where we've been keeping the humidifier. Although we needed it in the beginning of spring, for some reason humidity was low. Now in August, in the peak of summer, haven't needed it once. We've been having 70% or above humidity. So the climate is really weird in this new house of ours. On this first shelf we have a couple of Paphiopedilums, one of which is blooming right now. And we're going to put those in the Oncidium family too. We have our big Catasetum hybrid. I don't remember right now what the intergenetic hybridization is called. We have over here the Phalaenopsis blooming too. And the Psychopsis that right now is working on 2 buds but doesn't have any flower. I swear, this one I think blooms year-round constantly. We also have 2 other intergeneric hybrids there in the back. And there's also a Sherry Baby that should be up here but isn't, because when it blooms it becomes too big even for this shelf. And also we wanted to enjoy the blooms in our living room. Over here we have all of the Oncidiums that would fit actually on the shelves. So it's mostly Oncidium hybrids that aren't intergeneric, like those in the back. Our Oceoglossum also fits here. Because it's flowering, we now have the Phalaenopsis here. But we're going to be putting it in self-watering soon too. As you may have noticed from the first shelf and also on this one, we've been pretty much repotting every Oncidium into self-watering, mostly because I think they do very well in that setup, but also so I don't have to climb up this ladder as much to water them. I'll probably do a video about that process later, but I've been finding that the only con so far is I think the substrate goes bad way faster. I have one that's been repotted into self-watering a year or a year and a half ago, and I think it might be time to repot it again. Other than that, all of the Oncidiums have been doing great. Here on this side is our Oncidium Twinkles, of which we have 3, and our Swatuanum. We also keep on this shelf Artolumnias, of which we now have 3, and some Oncidium related species like the Comparetia and the Gomesa. Other species that you'll see later on the species shelves might also be loosely related to Oncidium, but we're not going to count them as such. Okay, now that I'm off the ladder, this will be much easier. At least I hope so. So this is the shelf where I keep mostly Dendrobiums and some Maxillarias. We also have here mounted our Phalaenopsis, because I could not figure out how else to display this plant now. Back there in the corner we have our 2 Kingianums, our Dendrobium parisi, and here in the front we have a lot of our smaller Dendrobium species. We also have here what is now pretty much a Dendrobium but used to be a Cattleya, of which we have 2. The other one is over there. And it's not looking great because a big mistake I made while we went on vacation was to keep all the plants huddled in the living room to make sure they wouldn't dehydrate too much because of the heat. And I completely disregarded how much higher the humidity is here, and because of that we got a bunch of bacterial infections. I either should have left them in their shelves, and if they get dehydrated, they get dehydrated, or I should have got some big fans to at least get some air circulation in the living room. So because of that, I have a bunch of plants that are either not doing great or on their way to the trash bin. It was really heartbreaking to get home and find this. As you can see, this one pretty much only has 2 leaves left. And let's see if they're not going to rot like the other ones. In more positive news, our Dendrobium lamellatum, that's always curling up leaves from dehydration, seems to have loved the really high humidity with no air circulation, because it's putting out a new growth that looks great for the first time since we've had it. And this one doesn't belong here. This is an Oncidium. I don't know why it's down here, maybe because it was flowering. So let's get it out of the way. This corner we have our 3 Maxillarias. We used to have the Schunkiana. For some reason it just withered away. It spent the last 2 years slowly losing bulbs, not looking great, to the point where I just gave up and tossed it in the trash. But as you can see, we have the Maxillaria variabilis, the Tenuifolia, and the Picta. We also have over there our big Dendrobium Gen Orenstein. And I'm trying to show you the plant without showing my neighbor's house. That's another one that I need to find a better way to keep it, because I don't love having it mounted there facing the window. I can barely see the plant. So that's clearly going to be a project for the future. This shelf is usually what I call the species shelf, because this is where I put all the miniature species and stuff that doesn't really fit with anything else. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to make a category for this type of orchid in the count. Back there in the corner we have our catasetums. There's 3 there now, but I have 4. One of them is flowering, so I had to pull it out of the shelf. And I would have had to pull it out of the shelf whether it was flowering or not, because catasetums aren't really conducive of being in shelves, except when they're in dormancy. As you can see by the Millennium Magic back there in the background, the leaves are pretty much coming out of the shelves. So I'm gonna have to find another solution for the catasetums at some point. We also have back there the 2 catasetums I bought recently, and you might notice they have no leaves. When we first arrived from vacation, I was really scared that they also got that bacterial infection because all the leaves were gone. However, the pseudobulbs aren't mushy, so I don't know if it was the fact that I kinda repotted them when they arrived, even though I shouldn't have, or if it was being a little more dehydrated while we were away, but they seem to have lost their leaves. I think that this might just set them back a little bit and they'll make new growths again next year. At least I'm hoping that's what happens. Over here we have Orchideas that also lost the leaves while we were away. I'm assuming for the same reason that the catasetums did. Climbing the shelves, we have our vanilla, which is doing great, has kept on doing great. So far it's really easy to keep this one. I know I won't get flowers from it for like 10 years, but I think I'm okay with that. So far it's been fun seeing it vine up the shelves. Back there we have two plants that also really suffered with a bacterial infection. It's our two ceratostylis. The rubra lost a bunch of leaves, and I ended up removing all of the little sheaths that were rotting in hopes that the center of the plant wasn't affected, but we're gonna have to wait and see. And the other ceratostylis next to it is literally just a leaf now. Most of it rotted away, and I'm pretty sure that leaf is not gonna last either. So yeah. For now I'm gonna add it to the orchid count, but I'm not too hopeful. On the other corner we have our coleogenes. We have the cristata and the fimbriata. The cristata never did good for us, don't know why. It finally has one good looking pseudobulb and I think we've had it for 3 years. To make up for it though, I think we keep repotting the fimbriata in bigger and bigger bowls, and as you can see it's already growing out of that bowl. That, and it keeps making flowers pretty much year round. So if one coleogene doesn't like our care, the other one seems to love it. Oh, actually no. That grassy thing over there I think right now is also classified as a coleogene, so technically we have 3 coleogenes. Over here in the center we have our Harella retricala, which I think now it's considered a gastrochilus. And we have 2 other gastrochiluses here, so technically I can add 3 to the count. We also have over there our one Masdevallia, which we've had before and it rotted. And now, because of the stupid bacterial infection, I think it's rotting too. Actually, it was the first plant I noticed that happening. I removed the half of it that had most of the infection, but I don't think the other half is looking great either, so we might be losing that one again. Will I be stubborn enough to purchase it a 3rd time? TBD. Here in the front we have a bunch of little species that are either very loosely related to Oncidium or just I can't put into any general category. And we have our one terrestrial orchid, the Macotas, that got a bit laggy while we were away, but otherwise seems to be doing fine. On this bottom shelf we have all our Bulbophyllums. I now have enough of them to warrant its own shelf. And these smaller ones in the self-watering pots here in the front all also suffered from the bacterial infection. Because they're sympodial, I was able to cut off the bulbs that were affected, and I'm hoping it didn't spread to the rest of the plants. But that teaches me the lesson. Self-watering and huddling all the plants close together with no ventilation really doesn't work. There in the back we have the big specimen-sized Bulbophyllums, but those 2 bowls over there are the same plant. When I got it repotted, there was so much leftover cuttings that I decided to put it in 2 bowls to give to someone at some point. But who would want a gigantic plant with tiny flowers that stink? So it's gonna sit over there until I find the one person crazy enough to want one of these. Over here to the side on the floor, because it didn't fit anywhere else, we have our first Cattleya type, our Epidendrum nocturnum, that I'm hoping gets enough light from the window even though it's on the floor, because it's too big even for the Oncidium shelf. Now we move on to the shelf on the other wall. If we go to the shelf on the bottom of this side, we have all our Paphiopedilum orchids. We have 6 of them, and they're all doing pretty well. All flowering, some better than others. For some reason, that vinicolor hybrid that we have there at the front, that's really common. It's the one path that's harder to flower for some reason for me. But other than that, I can't complain about the paths. One shelf up, and we have our Angraecum orchids and all the Vanda orchids. And that includes here the Orchideas hybrid that we have hanging on our window. If it looks smaller to you, it's because we did chop it up recently and we're working on a video about it and the whole process. So stay tuned for that. This is also the only place we could find for these 2 smaller mounts. One of them is a Bulbophyllum, and the other one is a Cattleya, which I think I'm going to put in like the miscellaneous orchid category. Maybe it's related to Vanda, but I'm not sure. Like I said, this is where we keep all the Angraecoids, because I think in terms of needs they're very similar to the Vandas. So we decided to keep them in the same shelf, which is the shelf that gets the most sunlight. And we also put an extra Varina bar in here just to make sure. There in the back we have our Aranthis. We also have 3 Oranges. The Mysticity over there is even blooming. We also have a couple of Angraecums. And then down here we have the 2 newest additions to this family, which is a Mysticitium and I forgot the name of this tiny one, a Maziella. They're all in the Angraecoid family, so we like to keep all the little genera together. To this side, it's all of our Vanda orchids. And you're gonna have to excuse the noise. I think my neighbor is watering her garden. So if you hear water running, that's what it is. And I call these Vandas, but I'm pretty sure none of them are actual Vanda species. They're just in the Vanda family. We have here in the middle our Neophanetia. Behind it is a Neophanetia hybrid. Then we have a Renanthera, some Ascacentrum hybrids, some Holcoglossum hybrids here in the front, the droopier ones. Like I said in my most recent haul, I'm not sure if I could keep an Ascacentrum species, but so far these 2 hybrids, being mixed with other Vanda type orchids, seem to be doing really well here with warmer temperatures. Going up one more shelf, and here is where I keep all my smaller Cattleyas. So the Rupiculus laelias, the smaller species, things like that. On this corner are all the Rupiculus laelias. Looking at the shelf, I think I have 6 of these. And I really love this type of Cattleya. I find the plants really cute, and they usually have gigantic flowers for the size of the plant. So I'm really enjoying keeping these. And any species of Rupiculus Laelia I find, I pretty much buy on the spot. A little bit to the side, we have my smaller encyclias, like the Marii and the Bracteata. And the Bracteata is actually about to open her first bloom, and I'm really excited for that. Down here we have our, what's the name? Yes, our Epidendrum porpax. It's doing really well, as you can see. It's turning into a really neat little bowl of plant. Behind it we have some miniature Cattleyas, like the Christelle Smith that we just got, and a bunch of other really small Cattleya hybrids. More to the right we have some Cattleya species that will turn out to be big, but so far they still fit in this shelf. We got this mainly thanks to Matt from Matt by Nature, who sent us a bunch of seedlings from species that we never would have even considered having because they're so big. Because of him, I was pretty much forced into keeping these Cattleyas, and I think I'm really going to enjoy the experience. We've had them for 4 years so far, but they're still really small. I'm pretty sure it's my own fault. I'm not exactly an expert grower, but they're still alive. Each pseudobulb is bigger than the next, so I can't be doing that bad of a job. Over here, closer to the light, we have a couple of Brassavola hybrids and our 2 Leptodas that used to be mounted, and then I decided to pretty much pot them up because in this new house we don't have as much space for mounts. We also have down here the little Sophronitis I just got from Schwerter a few months ago. And if you remember that video, I actually ordered 2 by mistake. And I was so lucky that I ended up ordering 2 because one of them got that nasty bacterial infection that a lot of my plants got while we were away. So now we have this one that's pretty healthy so far. Yeah, but the other one just melted. That goes to show you the importance of proper ventilation when growing orchids. Up here we also have our Brassavola cuculata that, as you can see by the sheer size of it, really needs to be mounted. So we placed a mount up there next to the other bigger Cattleyas that are on the most top shelf of this furniture. Here you have a better look at that Cattleya shelf. Again, we don't keep a lot of like normal Cattleya species because they're simply too big. So we have a bigger Brassavola hybrid, some smaller complex hybrids. We have 3 of those Prostechia cochleata hybrids. And we keep all of those here. They get a lot of light, they have extra artificial light, and because they're Cattleyas and they're a bit more drought tolerant, I don't water that shelf as much as I water the other ones. Right above this shelf, up there, we have very temporarily what's left over of those Phalaenopsis that got some mysterious, I think, viral illness last year. And those that still have signs on the leaves and I still haven't repotted, I keep up there. I also still have up there that Cattleya that I did the LECA experiment in. I kept it up there because she looked a bit ill while I did that. You saw it in the video. So I didn't want to put it near the other Cattleyas. I think she's recovering, but yeah, those plants are staying up there until they start looking a little bit more healthy. Next to the balcony inside the office is where I keep all the Phalaenopsis. We keep them in our office furniture, which is pretty much the same as the furniture in the balcony, just not as deep. And I turned off part of the lights just so it would be easier to film. It still has the barinas on, but I turned off the kitchen lights. And right now Phalaenopsis really are the easiest genera to keep for us. A lot of growers seem to get over their Phalaenopsis phase as soon as they get bored with the big complex ones, but I've always liked Phalaenopsis species. And of course I still like my big complex Phalaenopsis hybrids, but I still find the species fascinating. As much as I've been enjoying the challenge of growing Bulbophyllums and small little species that are a bit more finicky, just in terms of enjoying blooms, the Phalaenopsis species and primary hybrids will always have a special place in my heart. That's why we have so many. Up there in the top is where I keep all the big complex Phalaenopsis. I'm thinking of giving some of them away, just some that were either given to me or that I got in some sort of bargain bin, and I just don't love them as much anymore, and I wanted to clear up some space. But for now they're still part of the collection, so they still enter the count. I also have up there what you would consider the mini Phalaenopsis, which, as you can see, after a few years they take up pretty much the same space as a normal Phalaenopsis, just they have plants and flower spikes that are a little bit more compact. The other 3 rows of shelves are pretty much either species or primary hybrids, and I try to organize them by, familiarity, like trying to put all the Amboinensis hybrids to one side, all the Violacea hybrids to the other, but I don't think I've been too successful because when you're watering and putting them on the shelf, they end up not being like in the best order ever. We are right at the end of Phalaenopsis season, so we have a few that are flowering, but not too many. Some of them, like that summer rose over there, has even been in flower this year already. Dried up the flower spikes, made new ones, and it's flowering up again. Don't ask me why. She usually flowers for a really long time, but it's pretty much a flower spike per year. She really decided to get prolific this year. And that's it. That's our orchid count. If my database is correct, we have 188 right now. Although there's always a chance that I may have tossed one and forgotten to delete it from the database, or the other way around, I forgot to add one. I guess I won't know until I'm editing this video. It ended up being a really quick update. I didn't go plant by plant like I usually do, but we can always make a video like that at the beginning of next year if you're into it. If not, if it's too boring, just let us know and we won't make it. I also would like to note that I know this is a lot of orchids. You don't hear this as much in the orchid hobby, but certainly people mention it when you keep houseplants, and I've even heard it being a concern when people make videos about their pets. But just because I happen to have the space and the time to take care of all these plants and the will, doesn't mean you have to keep these many, or that is some sort of race to see, who gets the most plants. This count was more just a fun way of looking through them and seeing how many of each type I have, and less of a way to brag, look at me, I have so many orchids. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and come back next week for another orchid or plant video. Goodbye.